Are there any agenda additions? Now we'll move to visitors. First, we have Mr. Gary Joyner. Come forward, Gary. Name and address for the record. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm Gary Joyner. I'm a professor of history at LSUS, but today I'm wearing a different hat, precision cartographic at Shreveport. I have been a consultant for this body on and off for, over 20 years, which is sort of scary. This is census year, and following census year is the difficult year of reapportionment. And I met with Mr. Grubb and with Art Thompson of the city and Reg Abrams of the school board on March 19th to discuss the most efficient way to handle reapportionment. You have before you a document that I created showing what has to be done this year, what has to be done next year. And for those of you who were around last time, the basic difference between 2011 and 2001 is that about every third census, no less than every other census, the election order is upside down. Last time the school board went first and it just wreaked havoc with everybody. This is a traditional one. So this is like it was in 1990. And what that means for you is that when census is complete and the feds digest all that data and send it back to you, it's going to be early March if we're lucky. You have to look at when your election cycle happens, you have to back up 60 days for the Department of Justice. Before that, you have to back up your public hearings, then you have to back up when you can have, the latest you can have your reapportionment plan done. So between census arrival, assuming it's March 1st and we don't know yet, up until the time that you send it, you're going to have 2 months to do a plan. And I don't mean your first plan, I mean your final plan. In 2000, when we went through this and we had a nice leisurely time, I ended up doing 24 plans for this body. However, for the school board, I did 29. And they have some leisure, as does the city. But the general idea is that if the three bodies get together and we combine for efficiencies, the initial process will be different. Y'all will carry the burden. There is no doubt about that. But after that, everybody's going to be on their own. They can do whatever they want. So you have before you a proposal by me for how many hours I think it's going to take to do the work. There's about 200 hours of prep for this year because we have to go back, we have to look at every precinct change that you've made. We have to look at all of the approval documents from Justice to make sure that nothing's fallen through the cracks. And we have to prepare, in case there is some kind of challenge, we have to go back, look at 1990 and 2000, and then we'll compare the 2010 census blocks, which we already have. And then when the populated data for each block comes in, then we start working. So if you choose to have me work with you, I am here for you. Believe me, this is one of my favorite groups to work with. It always has been. It helps that I live here. There's nothing like driving 5 minutes to go and talk to you guys as opposed to driving 6 hours for some of my other clients and then back after a 1-hour meeting. So, believe me, beside that, I live in Caddo Parish and I love this place. Any questions on your part? Or have I just stunned you as I do my students? Mr. Escade, I guess the ball's in your court, sir.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Joyner initially? Right on hand. Guess we'll digest.
All right, there's a lot to digest, but if you have any questions, you've got my email, my telephone number. Call me anytime, and I mean that. Not just during business hours. You call me and I'll help.
Well, let me ask you something just right off hand. Is this going to be more labor intensive this go round than 10 years ago? Is that what you're saying?
It will because it's fast. Yes. What we're trying to do by doing the work, the prep work this year, is to keep it from being the nightmare it's going to be on March 1st, March 15th, when the data comes out. I don't think we can afford to have any time to digest and do what ifs. I want to look at all the potential errors. I want to get everything straightened out on the local level and also on the state level and federal level before it ever occurs. It can do nothing but help you.
Kind of stayed on top somewhat of the trends where the population's shifting. What districts have lost population? I mean, do you kind of have a feel for it? It doesn't.
Oh,
has there been a
yes.
lot of movement, or has there not been a lot of movement?
Your total numbers are pretty close to where they are. Without preaching doom and gloom, because there's no way to do that yet, it is purely smoke and mirrors. Even the estimates from the Census Bureau are going to be smoke and mirrors late in the decade. You've got some districts that have continued to grow no matter what. The poster child for this is 9. There are others. You have others that have seen a decrease. There's no doubt. And if you just think of neighborhoods, look at the traditional Ledbetter Heights with a lot of depopulation of housing. Look at Queensboro, Allendale, same kinds of issues. You've also got people who have just simply moved around. But no matter what you do, even if you try to stop 9 from growing, 9's going to grow. It's just going to grow. It's a corridor. Erie Drive, Ellaby Road are just natural places. The north part of Parish, very stable, always has been, always will be. But the challenge in doing this reapportionment is that since we have to look at the whole parish as a whole, regardless of what we do, regardless of how we draw lines, we try to do the least damage as possible, we try to keep neighborhoods together, we try to keep communities together, particularly in the rural areas, you got to. But what do you do about the places that have lost, the districts that have lost population? 10 is a great example because 10 squeezed. It's not that you've lost, it's just that you got neighbors who are going to have problems. So you could grow. The question is, do you grow north? Do you grow east and west? You cannot grow south unless we have a coup d'etat and take over DeSoto Parish, which is not advisable and probably highly illegal, of course. But
well, you have to go through Jim's area first.
Yeah. But it could still affect you.
Oh, yeah.
So the main thing to do is to keep things equitable. We have a 5% leeway, plus or minus, in every district based on whatever the perfect number is that justice tells us. 9 will be a challenge. But as I put in the document, when you read it, I think if we keep the southeastern, southwestern, and northern boundaries as those districts as anchors that are nice and solid, then we can do less damage on the interior. We have to follow all the regs, obviously, that the Voting Rights Act puts down. We have other issues from the state that we have to listen to. But in the bottom line, my job is to make sure that whatever plan goes up is something that you like, and 2, is pretty much bulletproof. I don't want anybody to be able to come in from the outside and say you did something wrong, which is, that's what you pay me for, is to make sure that it's equitable, it works, and that there's absolutely no backsliding in either race nor ethnicity. And we can do that. And we'll make it work.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
All right. One more. Mr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have Mr. Kent Rogers today with us from the NLCOG. He's going to give us an update on I-49 progress.
Rogers, Executive Director, Northwest Louisiana Council of Governments, 401 Market Street, Suite 460, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71101. And before I start this, let me tell you, as somebody that has done some reapportionment work in the past, hire the guy. It's a nightmare, and he's good at it. Good news, 49 is under construction. There's a couple of slides I'll show you up above. The common feeling out there in the world is that we're still out there trying to scratch and scrape every little dollar we can get to begin the process, but we're under construction and well under construction. The pictures you're seeing right here are roughly at where the interchange of 49 and 71 in the north area be. This picture is actually the new overpass of 71. I guess about 3 weeks ago, we were looking at doing a local press conference, not the governor's, but another one. And we were actually trying to use this area, and DOTD stopped us and said, no, because we're going to open that section, we're going to open this piece of 71 2 days prior to your press conference, so we're not going to let you do it. So it's good news. New road is constructed, new road is actually open. As we normally talk about 49, in this area there's two pieces. 49 North, which is 220, the Arkansas border, and then the inner city piece. 49 North is broken up into several sections, A through K. Sections A through D have been let for construction, and those pictures that you saw just a minute ago were in this, if my mouse can show up, roughly in this area right here, where Section C crosses 71. That piece of 71 was where I was standing. The press conference that the governor held on Friday was to announce, you see Section E down here is colored in blue. The press conference that the governor had was to announce funding for that section. What that gives us is sections A through E are now subject to capital outlay bill being approved of through this legislative session, full funding for all 5 of those sections. The amount that he announced at the press conference was $44 million. That's broken into 3 ways. $7.5 million from this year's allocation from the Unclaimed Properties Fund, roughly $10.5 million in Priority 2 capital outlay, and the remainder would be in Priority 5 capital outlay, which basically means that remainder is hopefully Priority 2 capital outlay next year. Because of how, if we can get the project let and spending, that still is okay to get us, through that 2-year process of getting that piece of construction underway. South of Section E, Sections F, G, H, and I are also fully funded and in the process of being let for construction over the next couple of months. With that other funding provided through this year's session, we should be able to drive on 49 from LA1 to the Arkansas border and have traffic coming into this state from the north in roughly 2.5 years, which is tremendous. And that also gives us 4-lane interstate all the way from the Arkansas border down to LA1. With the northern portion, we still have 2 sections that we'll be looking at funding for. That is the section from LA1 to MLK, and then the MLK to 220. That portion includes 2 pieces of very large interchanges and is a very expensive piece. As you can see, sections J and K of the 2 unfunded pieces are roughly in the range of $150, $160 million to complete those 2, with section K being that extremely expensive one. The other part that we generally talk about in terms of I-49 is the inner city piece. We in LCOG, roughly a year ago, started a process, the environmental process, at looking at how do we make that connection from where we're in now up to the 220 portion. We held a series throughout the time period. We've held a series that actually says 6, but there were a total of about 12 public meetings looking at that section. We also sent out surveys. had surveys online, sent them out to all residents within the area, had surveys for the people that participated in the public hearings with a tremendous positive input and positive response to completion of that portion. One of the processes we did was we literally had the residents, you tell us, those that showed up for the meeting, you tell us how you would like to see that connection made. And you can see all the spaghetti lines on there, and we basically have a consensus corridor. Lo and behold, most of y'all could probably recognize this from several years back. But we had to start with that clean slate to make sure that we didn't bias the project. Second round of public meetings was to look at some context-sensitive solutions for the area. How would you like to see it designed? Not just ramming interstate straight through the area, but adding bike trails, green space, making sure that it looks nice for the area, is conducive for other development within the area. We've submitted that draft Day 0 to DOTD and Federal Highways for their review, and hopefully we'll be moving forward with that. The next part of that process is to do what they call an interchange justification study. We identified 2 locations for potential interchanges in that area, Ford Street and Hearn. That interchange justification study will say yes or no, we can do those there, and if yes, this is kind of how you'll have to design them, whether they could be, the traditional diamond interchanges, or whether we'll have to do some other things to make them work right within the area. And with that, if y'all have any questions?
Dominic?
I just got a couple. Can we get a copy of your slideshow, or email or something? The thing I really liked was talked about the part that said fully funded or partially funded, so we'll know what is or isn't.
Everything's funded from...
Yeah, but it has the dates too.
Okay.
Right there. You can,
Yeah, it's got the letting dates of when anything
Right.
should be let and should be completed.
I guess the question is, it's maybe a stupid question, but when the I-49 portions are completed, I don't know, I'm going to say A, is that the one up around the Ida area?
Correct.
Will that open first and then be open to be driven on? Or is
The likelihood is it'll be open from A to D at one point.
that'll be down there too?
That gets us to 71, and then the remainder of it open after that.
Okay.
But to be honest, it'll all be, because some of it is more complicated than others, it'll probably won't be that much difference in time frame from when that's done to when the southern portion's open.
Okay. But we're still looking for about 2.5 years for that to be fully.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Kent.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Commissioners, I sent you all a letter last week informing you all that Mr. Robinson, William Robinson, who had been funding us for our animal services control positions, adoption, and humane coordinator positions, had informed us that funding would no longer be available. And over a period of time, those positions have been very effective for us. And in my letter to you all, I request that you all allow us to keep one of the positions, and we merge the responsibility into one position, that of the humane adoption coordinator. Yeah, the humane education coordinator position. We think roughly that'll price out to about $40,000 approximately. We know it's a tight budget. We think there's a little wiggle room in there to fund that, even though we wouldn't have Mr. Robinson's funding. And we do appreciate him funding us over 2 years. He had a 5-year commitment, but due to circumstances beyond ours and his control, he's no longer be able to fund the position going forward. So I would appreciate if you all would give us favorable consideration for us to retain one position and merge both responsibilities into one position. We feel that we can make that work.
Questions? Ms. Lynch?
I'd like to see if the president is okay with that, if we could send him a letter thanking him for that 2 years of funding.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it came at a very critical time and helped us to, I guess, take our animal services department to another level. So while I realize it's short on what we thought it would be, we certainly want to thank him for the 2 years of funding that we did get.
Yes, ma'am. Great. I'll make sure that happens.
Anyone else? Okay, so Mr. Wilson, my understanding is you think you currently have money in this year's budget in animal mosquito control to absorb this? Is that what you're indicating?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Wilson, you done?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, can I ask one?
Pardon me, Mr. Dominic?
Now, so we need to, you want us to move forward with this fairly quickly to give you the authority to hire or make this one position, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can we amend the agenda to do that, or? Mr. President?
We could, I don't, we currently have both employees now?
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay, what's the timeline on that?
I think there's some things occurring within the department. As you all know, Mr. Harris got promoted, and we have an internal posting now for an assistant position within the department. So once we finalize that, we will know where we need to move laterally. But we think that,
So right now, you're utilizing both people because the workload
yes, sir, we are.
is being stretched out.
Yes, sir.
Then, this is not an urgent thing. We can take it up at our next meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, we should put it on next.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Is that all, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, communications and reports.
Letter asking the reappointment of Mr. Alan Berry to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and a letter from Pioneer Waterworks District 8 requesting requesting appointment of Curtis Davis to replace Mr. Thomas Owagi.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. Is there anyone here from the audience who would like to address this body on any matters other than zoning? If not, we'll move on. No other business, new business, please.
Zoning case appeal P18, Brian Elton Bailey's applicant appellate asking to rezone property southwest of the side of Meriwether Road, Denny Drive to RMHP for proposed mobile home park. This case was remanded back to MPC January, and you'll be seeing it again on April 22nd.
Recommend moving forward to Thursday.
Moved by Mr. Epperson to move to Thursday. Can I get a second, please? Second. Mr. Jenkins, is there any discussion? I'm sorry, yes, Mr. Epperson.
Would it be okay at this time if we may hear from Mr. Stephen John relative to the situation?
Certainly. Yes, sir.
Many of you are probably aware that we remanded this back to the MPC a while back. I went out and worked with Mr. Bailey. He made some modifications on his plans, and I'd like for Mr. Stephen to give us an update as to those modifications and what the MPC's decision was relative to those.
Basically, what happened is there was a plan submitted actually to this body in respect to a lower density development. And also, there were two lots that were already platted at the very beginning of this development, that the developer agreed that those would not be building sites, that they would remain green space. So we had quite a bit of difference between what was presented to the board from the standpoint of lesser density and lesser impact on the aesthetics from the roadway. So because of those two primary changes, the board decided to go with the revised plan that was submitted to them. It was actually the same plan with one minor modification. We did want to make sure that it was very clear on the plan that those two lots at the front of the lot, the front of the development remain undeveloped, and they did make that note on the site plan. But that's the only difference between what this body saw and what the MPC actually approved. You have any other questions?
If I may, with that, I would once again recommend moving forward to Thursday and ask for the board's approval relative to that change.
All right, anyone else? Vote, please. All right, that moves to Thursday. Next item, please.
Zoning case P1, Thomas Wayne Moore is the applicant asking to rezone property east side of Wallace Lake Road for proposed new and used utility trailer sales.
Move Thursday. Moved by Mr. Thibodeau, seconded by Commissioner Epperson, that we move to Thursday. Is there any discussion on this motion? If not, please vote. That is so moved. Next item, please.
Ordinance 4977 declares certain adjudicated property to be surplus authorized sale of tax interest.
Move to Thursday.
Moved by Commissioner Lynn, seconded by Commissioner Lynch. Is there any discussion on this motion? All right, please vote. That's moved to Thursday. Next item.
Resolution number 25 asks the governor and the legislature to include full funding for Section E of Interstate 49, upcoming state budget.
Commissioner Lynch?
This was put on the agenda before the governor's press conference, but as Mr. Rogers said, that it is still subject to approval by the legislature. We may need to tweak the wording of it a little bit, but as you all know, we've been lobbying for I-49 at least as long as I've been on the commission, probably before I even got here. It's taken up quite a bit of our federal lobbying efforts as well as lobbying at the state level, and so I think we still do need to be on record in some form that we're supporting the governor's proposal. But like I said, that's his proposal, and it's still got to be approved by the House and the Senate at the state level. Thank you. So I'm recommending that we move this to Thursday, and our attorney is going to do some tweaking to the wording for the final document on Thursday.
Second. Been moved by Commissioner Lynch and seconded by Commissioner Cox that we move this forward to Thursday and in consideration of amendments made to the document for final passage. Is there any discussion on this motion? If not, please vote. Move to Thursday. Next item, please.
Resolution 26 authorizes the administrator to execute an agreement with the sheriff concerning commissioning of employees of the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Unit to do law enforcement duties.
Move to Thursday.
Moved by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Chair. Commissioner Smith, you made the motion. Do you have anything to say?
Of course, our committee met today, as some of you know, and went over the changes that we had talked about in committee with the intergovernmental agreement with the sheriff. I think we've now come up with a really good plan and have a good way of enforcement that all parties can agree to, and I think we'll take care of the parish roads by these changes, and so I recommend we move it to Thursday.
Thank you. Commissioner Thibodeau?
Like in Globo 8, 9, 10, and 11, goes Thursday.
It's been moved by Commissioner Thibodeau and seconded by Commissioner Jenkins that we, in Globo, items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Is that correct?
8, 9, 10.
8, 9, 10, and 11. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, Ms. Samuels, you ready?
Yes.
All right. It's been done. Next item, please.
Authorize appointing Curtis Davis to the Pioneer Waterworks District.
Recommend moving forward to Thursday.
Moved by Mr. Epperson, seconded by Commissioner Dominic that we move to Thursday. Is there any discussion on this motion? Please vote. Let's move to Thursday. Next item.
Appoint Michael Irving to the Parish Communications District Board.
Move to Thursday. Moved by Mr. Dominic. Seconded by Commissioner Smith that we move Mr. Thomas' appointment to Thursday. Is there any discussion on this motion? Please vote. All right, that passes. Next item, please.
Authorize appointment of members of the Caddo Parish Children and Youth Services Planning Board.
Move to Thursday, please. Moved by Commissioner Lynn, seconded by Commissioner Cox that we move this to Thursday. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Thibodeau?
Are all these the same appointees as have been on it prior?
No, it is not. There have been an adjustment to people that expressed a great amount of interest to be added, and the people that were quite active in it in the past were kept.
Okay, could you explain what changes were made, just so we'll know? Would you care to do that? Could you take us through real quick?
There were 2 that were recently removed, and the 2 added in their place were Curtis Hooks, Director of OJJ, as well as Amy Richardson, with the founder of Women's Philanthropy Network. Those were the 2 that were principally added. Also, with the Superintendent of Caddo Parish Schools and the Chancellor for Southern University, they had down their directors of security, so they basically had their head of police coming as the current appointees, and I took those names off and put their names up there, hoping that either they would attend these meetings or they would find someone other than a police officer to attend the meetings, because we are very well represented by Lieutenant Dennis Pratt with the Sheriff's Department, Kristen Bernard with the Public Defender's Office, and Lieutenant Sam Hall with the Sheriff's Department, very well represented in the policing area. What we need is educators.
All right, is there any discussion? Being none, please vote to move to Thursday.
Sorry. Okay.
All right. Takes care of it. Not like anything else, we're adjourned. That's an odd vote.